rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world, and then shall the end come.
Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?
Here's today's prophecy update. What is being touted as the biggest debate of all history will be held this evening. Many topics are slated for discussion when Hillary Clinton meets Donald Trump. However, one question should loom above all the rest. Is it time for America to surrender its sovereignty to the international community? Should we move from the nation state to a system of one world government? The Bible prophesies a world government will be formed in the end time as mankind searches for the way to peace. The bigger question follows: should America be part of the coming one world government? One candidate says yes, the other candidate says no. Before we actually dive into our subject today, and I do want to cover this most ballyhooed of all debates, they're projecting 100 million people will view these debates, not only here in the United States of America, but it actually has captured the attention of the entire world. Why is it so important? Because the programs for each of these candidates is so dramatically different, and it will determine the direction of the United States of America, possibly for from now until the second coming of Jesus Christ. So it is important. Before we go there, though, I will be in Columbus, Indiana this coming Saturday evening. That will be October the 1st at 6 p.m. And I'm speaking that night appropriately on America's God-given destiny. And I'm showing in that lesson what the Bible prophesies for America, proving, number one, that the United States of America is in fact prophesied in the Bible, but number two, what is prophesied for our future? Will we be part of the kingdom of the Antichrist? Will the mark of the beast be implemented here in America? Will we stick by Israel? Will we forsake Israel? I will be answering those questions straight from Scripture this coming Saturday evening in Columbus, Indiana at 6 p.m. That's October the 1st. The location, the Sanctuary, 3939 Central Avenue, Columbus, Indiana. I'll be right back there at the same location on Sunday noon. That will be from 12 noon until 2:30 p.m. I will be there speaking on breaking prophetic fulfillments. We're going to be talking about what's happening with ISIS, with the war on terror. Will the final 7 years to Armageddon begin this year? The Pope recently received the Charlemagne Prize. What's that all about? Anyway, we will also be taking your questions from the floor after the prophecy update. So it's going to be an exciting time. Two totally different sessions. Saturday evening, America's God-given destiny. Sunday noon, breaking prophetic fulfillments. Plan to be at both of those sessions. However, right now, we want to get to the hot topic at hand, and that is the debate. We will be taking your calls on the program today. By the way, I'm broadcasting from Indianapolis, Indiana, where I will be attending the Pentecostal Convention this week. I will also be speaking at that convention for one of their seminars at 9 a.m. on Thursday morning. So any of you that are attending the convention, you might like to join us for that session. Right now, let's talk about the debate. Now, 3 themes have been chosen for the debate. Number 1, the direction of the country. Number 2, what will you do to bring prosperity to America? Number 3, what will you do to enhance security? Those are supposed to be the 3 main themes for the debate this evening. The candidates I think we're 5 hours away or so. We're getting really close to the time when this is going to blast off. It's going to be interesting, and the world is going to be mesmerized as we see whether Donald Trump can stay in the arena with Hillary Clinton. Talk about opposites. Well, it's going to be opposite. But I want to talk to you today about these big categories, because I am finding as I talk with people that there's a lot of people that don't even know what the questions are, let alone what the proper answers should be. And I want to make sure that this audience, all of you that are listening to me today, at least have a good grip on what the questions are and what the answers should be. Now, the host of the debate this evening is going to be, according to his own agenda, is going to be directing his questions to: one, what direction should the country take? Number two, what will you do to create prosperity in America? And number three, what will you do to provide security? Supposedly, these are the three big concerns of the voting public today here in the United States of America. So let's talk a little bit about the direction of the country. What does that even mean? Before I actually begin to comment, I'd like to ask you, do you know what that means? Do you have any comprehension as to what is meant by the direction of the country? What are we talking about here? Why is that one of the big items in tonight's debate, and what should I be listening for? Because sometimes when candidates do not want to tip their hand, they can talk all around the issue, and by the time they're done, you don't know what they said or didn't say. So let me just give you some things to look for. Number one, direction of the country. Right now, this nation has been moving towards one world government for several administrations, both Republican and Democrat. They call it globalism or globalization. It actually began with the fall of the Berlin Wall, and after the fall of the Berlin Wall, within a matter of 20 days or so, George Herbert Walker Bush, who was the president at the time, announced that we were moving into the New World Order. Now, everybody heard that, and it's just so much political jargon, and what does that mean, and why do I care? But we really should care, because it means a lot. What do the politicians mean by New World Order? What is the term establishment? What are these? Are these just empty words, or do they have meaning that will ultimately have direct impact on all of our lives? Well, they actually do have meaning, and they will have tremendous impact on every single one of us. So let's talk about globalism for a minute. For a long time, there have been people who have embraced the opinion that the nation-state structure of our world is outdated, that it no longer works. They claim because of the internet and because of rapid travel, the world has shrunk, and therefore we have to have a new system of government that can encompass the globe. They call it globalization or globalism. Some call it global governance. That's one of their favorite terms, because they don't want to say world government. It's the exact same thing. But they know most Americans do not want to be a part of a world government. So instead they try to fool us, deceive us by saying global government. So that's one of the big issues on the table tonight. Now, global government versus national sovereignty. Now, one reason this is so important is because the Bible prophesies a global government for the very near future. If you'd like to read it for yourself, you can read it in Revelation chapter 13, verse 1 and 2. And actually it goes on down verse 1 through 8. It talks about the one world government that's going to be established. It talks about the person that will ultimately rule that one world government, and that he will ultimately exercise power over all peoples, all nations, all tongues. It's right there. Verse number 7 explicitly makes that statement. The same prophecy is in Daniel chapter number 7, when it talks about that he will bear rule over all the earth. So there's a prophecy of world government. It is time for that world government in the very, very near future. So we should not be surprised that one of the topics for this supposedly most important ever debate is the direction of our country. One candidate is for globalism, and the other candidate says, no, we have to retain our national sovereignty. We have to enforce our borders. We have to make sure we know who's coming in and only let those in that we want in. Whereas the other candidate says, no, let's throw the borders wide open. As soon as I'm elected, I am going to give amnesty to all the foreigners that are here that came here illegally. I mean, this is a huge gulf between these two candidates. And in my opinion, this is the most important issue of the debate tonight and in the present presidential election, which will be held on November the 8th. Now, in addition to that, what about race relations? You know, ladies and gentlemen, I really thought with America, predominantly white America, willingly electing a black president, I thought it showed that racism was pretty much fading into the past. And I thought race relations would just get better and better. I don't mind telling you, I've been pretty surprised, matter of fact, very surprised, that race relations have grown dramatically worse under the Obama administration. It's been shocking. Now, those of us who are Christians, we want love between us and our fellow man. Now, there may be some people who claim to be Christians out there who are racist, but I don't believe you can be a true Christian and be a racist, because the Bible says if you can't love your neighbor that you have seen, how in the world could you claim to love God that you have not seen? So yes, there are radicals out there who have racial hatred, but if any of them do it in the name of Christianity, they are violating Scripture. It's just wrong. So race relations is a very important part of this whole equation. And they've worsened terribly under the Obama administration. And I actually expected the opposite to happen. And that grieves me, frankly, because whoever becomes our next president, whether it's Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, I certainly hope that they will know how to bring white, black, red, yellow, bring everybody, if you're an American, to bring us all together. And that only happens when we come together in values. You know, we have learned in Iraq, we thought we would go in and impose democracy and they would just greet us with open arms and say, we've always wanted to run our own lives, and now you've come in and rescued us from Saddam Hussein, and now we're going to have a wonderful new life. And I think that's what some of our rulers thought as well. And all of a sudden, we find out they end up hating us, because until you change hearts and minds and until you change the value system of a people, then you're not going to change the people. Well, the same is true here in America. If we think we can bring in all these diverse cultures, and especially people who want to change our form of government, they don't want to be Americanized. They want to change Americans into their vision. Now, I'm not saying that all Islamic people want to change America into an Islamic nation, but some of them do. I think maybe 40 or 50% of the Muslims in America say they would rather live under Sharia law. Well, for us to allow people like that to come here, whose mindset is to undermine our Constitution and to do away with our form of life, to do away with our Judeo-Christian value system, well, that's a horrible mistake. And that's with ill will toward no one, with malice toward none. But we have to face it. A nation is only a nation when it's held together by the bonds of its common values and belief systems. And when you start injecting all kinds of countercultures into that system, before long, you have a horrible conflict. And we're experiencing it right now. I mean, what's going to happen? We've got people who have become wealthy from the prosperity of America that now won't even salute the flag. Well, that's because we have allowed this infiltration of an alternative belief system. Whereas normally, and I think it's still done, when a person immigrates into the United States, I believe they're required to pledge allegiance, to denounce their allegiance to the country from which they came, and to pledge allegiance to the United States of America. But now we have people who don't pledge allegiance, and we have major figures. I'm talking about our leading political leaders that are defending them because they don't want to pledge allegiance to the United States of America. We used to have a slogan, love it or leave it. Now, I do believe all of us should have freedom, but whenever you get a cancer under the surface eating away, now I will tell you very boldly, if they ever built anything into the Pledge of Allegiance that I could not say, for example, if they ever remove under God out of the Pledge of Allegiance, I couldn't say it, because when you pledge allegiance, that becomes your highest, your highest sovereignty. So I consequently could not do that if they took under God. But I'm very happy to pledge allegiance. I love this country. I thank God for our freedom, that I have the freedom to even get on the air and say these things, because in many countries today, that freedom does not exist. I can send emails, not worry about it. Now, I suppose if I sent emails threatening to kill someone or some kind of a relationship with ISIS, of course, then there would be ramifications. But as far as the freedoms that we enjoy, what a blessed people we really are. Nevertheless, okay, so we're really dealing with the heart and soul of the United States of America. Now, I want to go back for just a moment to the direction of our country, globalism versus national sovereignty. We have another huge choice between socialism and free enterprise. Some people lean towards socialism. They actually call it progressiveness. But the bottom line is, we either believe in socialism or we believe in free enterprise. These are opposites. And there are people that are running. As a matter of fact, one candidate is a very highly socialistic person. She calls herself a progressive. The other candidate says he's for free enterprise and is against socialism. So the choices, and you should listen to them. Now, let me tell you, let me just speak plainly here. We have never endorsed candidates here on End of the Age, because that's not what we're here for. We're here to present the truth, to present Jesus Christ. However, some of these issues, we're so close to the end time now that the two plans are clashing. The plan of evil and the plan of good, the plan of freedom versus the plan of slavery to government. These things are starting now to directly butt heads. So it's very hard at times to talk honestly and sincerely about something without talking openly and being transparent. So if a person embraces socialism, I know when President Obama was running for office, I wanted to vote for him because I was so thankful that America had cleansed itself from its prejudices to the point that we could elect a black, an African American for our president. I thought it was so wonderful and so healthy. But I couldn't just vote for him on that alone, and so I began to listen to what he was saying. I'll never forget the day when Joe the plumber was talking to President Obama before he was president directly, and he said to President to be Obama, "So do you believe in sharing the wealth?" And President Obama said, well, I do believe we need to pass the wealth around. Well, all of us want everyone to thrive, but as far as the socialist ideal to take from those who have and give to those who have not, if we take from a person who works for what he has and give to a person who will not work, well, one person said every time one person gets something they did not earn, another person earns something they did not get. So we've always believed here in America that if you don't work, you can't eat. And that's a biblical concept. The Apostle Paul wrote to the churches and said, he that will not work, he cannot eat. Now, that obviously does not cover a person who cannot work. I don't think there's any among us that would look at a cripple or a mentally incompetent person and say, I don't care about them. I think anyone that has any modicum of decency about them, they're going to look at a person. But if we see a healthy person, I know I was driving down the road the other day, and a man was begging for money. And he looked like he was in his late 20s, early 30s, and he was walking up and down. He looked totally able-bodied, and I thought, he sure looks like he could hold a job. And now we can hardly pass a person that's asking for help without us helping them. My wife and I both. My wife just is radical. She wants to help them if they need help. And she knows that some of them will take that money and go buy booze or go buy drugs. But she says that's their problem. The Bible says you may entertain angels unawares. That's her philosophy. And I love her for that. At the same time, though, we do have to realize in this nation that we've got the highest number of people on food stamps in the history of America. We have the highest number of unemployed people in America. We're close to 100 million people who are unemployed right now. Now, I know the statistics say we're down to 4.9 unemployment. Those are the ones that are registering for unemployment benefits whose unemployment have not run out. The rest of them have thrown up their hands and quit. So anyway, well, I don't want to get into all that, but this is going to be the issues that we will all be talking about this evening, and that all of us should be very, very aware of. Then I've already mentioned briefly about the preservation of our Judeo-Christian values. Now, the United States of America has been based on Judeo-Christian values. In other words, biblical values, Old and New Testament. However, in his first term, President Obama boldly declared, we are not a Christian nation. And I thought he will never get elected with that kind of a bold declaration, but he did. And it made me realize that we are further decayed in our values here in the United States of America than I thought we were. And then when he came out openly for same-sex marriage before his second term, I thought, people just aren't going to vote for a man marrying a man and a woman marrying a woman. I mean, anybody that knows their Bible, the Bible condemns it in thunderous terms. It says it's an abomination before God. And for a man to run that way in the United States of America, a nation built on Judeo-Christian values, it was obvious to me when he won that election that we are losing our Judeo-Christian values. Well, we've got to get them back. And, of course, all of you have lived through the time now, the last few years. You go to the store at Christmas time, people say, Happy Holidays, whereas everybody used to say Merry Christmas. What's going on here? We're in a struggle for the heart and the soul of America. Are we going to be just a mishmash of peoples that stand for nothing, that believe nothing? Or are we going to retain and recover? We actually need to recover. A lot of us still have those deep Judeo-Christian values right now, but it's like we're almost slipping into the minority. We need to have a revival of those values and get back to the things that made America great. So these are the things that I'm sure you're going to be hearing as we're listening to the debate this evening. But it's one thing to hear them and the ideas go right over the top of our head. It's another thing to really understand what is going on. Now, let me just say this to you right now. It's so vital. It's so important. And that is that we are fighting this fight, and the fight will not be over until Jesus returns to this earth. This world is going to move into one world government. I believe America can be saved and stay out of the world government, but only if we articulate these values. And that's what we're doing here at End of the Age. Not only are we preaching the prophecies of the Bible, but we're preaching what America should do in this vital and important time. We send a magazine to every U.S. senator, every U.S. congressman, to the president, the vice president. We're sending magazines to Hillary Clinton, to Donald Trump, because the politicians are getting so much input from unbiblical sources that we feel like that we need to give them input from biblical sources so they can be influenced by both sides. In order for us to continue to do that, we need for you to stand with us, because everything we do, of course, costs money. And so if you become a partner with us, whether it's $20 a month or $50 or $100 or $10 or whatever you feel like God would have you to do, I would encourage you to consider being a partner with Endtime Ministries right now. Now, I know I say this often on this program, but we are limited by the resources at our fingertips. We could go on twice as many television stations tomorrow if the finances allowed it. We could be on twice as many radio stations tomorrow if we had the financial support. And the more of you that jump on board, the more it helps us. And I promise you, we are doing all that we can to reach this world. So if you're not yet a partner with Endtime Ministries, why not become one right now? The number to call to be an Endtime partner is 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463. When you sign up, you're under no obligation. If you don't send yours in, we're not going to send the sheriff after you. We're not going to even call you. You're just saying, I want to stand with you. And so give us a call.
Our brand new series has arrived, From Here to Armageddon. In this 8-lesson series, Irvin Baxter will outline the exciting events recorded in the Bible that tell what will happen between now and the second coming of Jesus Christ. He will explain the prophecies that will lead to the greatest revival the world has ever known and how you can be a part of it. Call 1-800-ENDTIME or go to endtime.com to get your copy of From Here to Armageddon.
When current events are found in Bible prophecy, it's astonishing. At Endtime Ministries, we are seeing them unfold every day, and so can you. We've put together a current events in Bible prophecy package for anyone who wants to understand like never before. Irvin Baxter and his dedicated staff have spent hundreds of hours of research and study, and in doing so have discovered that current events and Bible prophecy are telling the same story. This series includes lessons such as when will the rapture happen, master plan of the dragon, Israel's future according to Bible prophecy, signposts of the second coming, refuting preterism, and to Sabbath or not to Sabbath. These 13 DVDs will prepare you for this extraordinary time that God has destined you to live. Call 1-800-ENDTIME or go to endtime.com and save over 30% when you buy the current events and Bible prophecy package.
If your radio station only carries the first 30 minutes of End of the Age, go to endtime.com and click the Watch button to continue today's broadcast. You can also finish up later by clicking the Archives button.
You're listening to End of the Age, and we're talking about what's supposed to be the biggest debate in the history of America this evening. Why is it evoking such passionate interest? Well, number one, the candidates are diametrically opposed to each other. The value systems that each are espousing are dramatically different. One wants to build a wall, the other wants to build bridges. One wants to declare amnesty for everyone that's in America right now. The other one says immediately all of those that have a criminal record that have come in illegally will be sent out. Now, Donald Trump has hedged on sending everybody out because I think somebody's talking to him and saying, wait, when a person's been here 20 years, they have family and everything, you've got to be a little bit reasonable, and I sympathize with that to a degree. Nevertheless, we're actually fighting for the value systems that we have embraced for many years since the founding fathers until today. There are those who want to fundamentally transform America. As a matter of fact, President Obama promised us when he was elected, I will fundamentally transform America. And has he ever? I fully understood the impact of his words when I saw the picture of the White House the night that the Supreme Court ruled that gay marriage, that opposition to gay marriage was unconstitutional. And when President Obama lit up the White House in glee and celebration that two men could commit sodomy with governmental approval and two women could commit sodomy with governmental approval, and he gleefully lit up the White House, I understood then that not only had he promised to fundamentally transform the United States of America, but he had achieved it. I will tell you that's one of the most sickening feelings I've ever had concerning something the government has done in my entire life. It may be the most sickening feeling I ever had when I saw our president using our White House to celebrate sodomy, the sin for which God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. My blood ran cold. I don't mind telling you, and I'm being very open and candid with you today. And I'm not ashamed of what I believe, because that's what the Bible teaches. You know, you say, well, how do we decide the value system of America? If we divorce the Bible and do not embrace Judeo-Christian values, we have no values. So you can do anything you want to do. You can marry a dog. You can marry a cat. I mean, where does it stop? We can have polygamy now. And on and on and on. And we can have no marriage at all. A lot of people would be happy with that. It is absolutely insane what has happened. It's like the anchor has come loose. I know when I was, we used to fish a lot for vacation. And a lot of times we would anchor, and the place where we anchored would be soft. And when the wind picked up, it would just pull your boat and the anchor would let go. And before long, you look up and you're 500 feet out in the middle of the water instead of where you wanted to be. But if you anchor on a rock, it just holds. Well, right now, America's anchor has lost its hold and we're adrift. Where are we going to stand? I think all of that is, in fact, at stake in the debate this evening. I am going to be taking your calls if you'd like to be on the air with me, 877-END-TIME. That's 877-363-8463. I've only covered one section of what's going to be discussed this evening. The second thing they're going to talk about is prosperity. Which of these candidates is most equipped to bring vitality back to the American economy, revive our industries? Over the last 20 years, we've seen our factories leave. Almost everything you buy today is manufactured in China or in Taiwan or someplace else. What will bring all those jobs back to the United States of America? Who can do that? That's a big issue that's happening right now. So it's so important that we really understand what's going on here. This is a battle for, will America be a socialist nation or will we embrace free enterprise? It has been proven over the last 100 years. Socialism doesn't work. China tried it. Russia tried it. And in both cases, it ends up in disaster. The government spends more and more and more and more, and the people produce less and less and less and less until finally the whole thing caves. Well, that's what's going on right now. America is adopting more and more socialism. With the adoption of socialized medicine with Obamacare, we took 20% of the economy. The medical industry controls 20% of the American economy and placed it under the government. We already had many socialistic programs. Well, we took on another 20% chunk in one huge leap and socialized all the medicine in America. So, and right now that's being disastrous. I think most of you agree with that. They promised you could keep your doctor. That's not true. They promised you your coverage will be cheaper. That's not true. Everything is going the opposite direction. So that's going to be very much at stake in this debate here this evening. So what will make America prosperous again? Take the government's foot off the back of the American people, get rid of all the insane regulations, and let the people, set my people free, let my people go. And when you allow the American people's ingenuity to go unbridled, I know we run a ministry and we have to file a lot of paperwork when we shouldn't have to file any, because government is not supposed to make any law concerning the establishment of religion or the free exercise thereof. But they've woven their way in until you're required to file this and file that and file this and do things this way and hire this way and do this, until everything is so controlled. And every time they put another rope around our necks, the freedom is restricted. And that's all. These are all things that are going to happen here. Now, a lot of us were promised prosperity, but let me tell you what's happened in America. And this will probably come up tonight. But the median household income has not risen for the last 30 or 40 years here in the United States. We're still where we were. 1989, the median household income was $53,000. By 99, it jumped up to 58. Then in 2007, it was down to 57.4, and in 2015, it's down to 56.5. So the median income of middle-class America has gone down under the Obama administration. The number of people on food stamps, let me see, I think I've got this statistic here. There's now 45 million Americans, 45 million on food stamps right now. And according to Bloomberg Business, the last time the unemployment rate was under 5%, which was 2008, 28 million Americans were on food stamps. So we're at the same place now, only this time 45 million. So almost 20 million more are on food stamps. And this is good for us? Is it good for blacks? Is it good for whites? Is it good for anybody? These are all things that are going to be at stake as we listen to the debate this evening. So listen very carefully and be judicious. I've watched as what the Democratic Party used to stand for seems to have changed, and what the Republican Party used to stand for seems to have changed. So I would urge you, do not vote because it's just Republican or just Democratic, but listen to the values that these candidates are embracing, because they, in fact, are going to make a difference. Well, listen, we want to get to the phones now. And Jim Stiegelman is anchoring our program back in Plano, Texas, while I'm here in Indianapolis, Indiana. So, Jim, let's go to the phones.
All right, 1-877-END-TIMES, an on-air number to talk to Irvin today, 1-877-363-8463. Let's start today out in Texas with Gary. You're first up.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Baxter, enjoy your the TV program, the Endtime, and have a question regarding a distance, furlong. On your program, I noticed you you said a furlong was 160 yards, and there were 10 to a mile. I used to run track, and my understanding of a furlong is half of a quarter mile. It'd be 220 yards, and there would be 8 furlongs to a mile.
Well, I suppose, Gary, that it depends on who you ask. I'll tell you where I got my information from. In the back of the Thompson Chain Bible, which is a very prominent Bible, they've got tables there. And it says there that there are 10 furlongs per mile. And, of course, you're referring to the prophecy of Revelation chapter number 14, verse 20, where it says blood will flow from to the horse's bridle by the space of 1,600 furlongs, which would be 160 miles if there are 10 furlongs per mile. So that's where I got my information. If that doesn't agree with someone else, there's a similar debate as to the amount of a cubit. Some say it's 1.5 feet, some say it's a little more, some say it's a little less. So there are debates over exactly what these measurements mean, but according to the tables in the back of the Thompson chain, there's 10 furlongs per mile. That's where I got my information. If that's not correct, then that means the Thompson chain is not correct.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Oh, you're most welcome. Appreciate the phone call very much, Gary. And we do have open lines today. If you'd like to call us, the number to call is 877-END-TIME. That's 877-363-8463. And let me tell you, we have a brand new series out. A lot of you have been really lobbying for something new for a while from Endtime Ministries. Well, we've had a few new single DVDs, but now we have 8 lessons in our new DVD series called From Here to Armageddon. I am so excited about this new series because it lays out in such clear terms the events that you and I are going to live through and experience over the next few years. It's called From Here, from where we are today, to the Battle of Armageddon. And we talk about the major events that occur. And then once we walk you through those major events, we give you a timeline. It's a beautiful timeline. And it just makes everything so crystal clear. We show where we are right now in the timeline, what's going to happen next as far as the prophecies foretold for the very near future. And it tells when the final 7 years is going to begin, what events will happen as we move through those final 7 years, ultimately culminating with the Battle of Armageddon and the second coming of Jesus Christ. If you would like to have your own copy of From Here to Armageddon, there's 8 lessons. The number to call is 1-800-END-TIME. That's the way to reach our operators. To reach me, 877-END-TIME. But to reach our operators, 1-800-END-TIME. I had mentioned a little bit earlier, also becoming a partner with Endtime Ministries. If you'd like to do that, you say, well, what do I get for it? Well, what I do is I sit down every single month and I write a special letter to our partners, because I feel like I owe it to the people that support us to let them know what's going on inside of Endtime Ministries and what the latest prophetic developments are, the late breaking news. And so you'll receive that partner letter every single month from me if you become a partner with Endtime Ministries. So please consider doing that. We need you. God needs you, because the end time's not coming. The end time has now arrived. To reach our operators, 800-END-TIME is the number, 1-800-363-8463. We'll be right back. What an incredibly important subject we have today, Islam in Bible prophecy. It hasn't been many years since those planes flew into the trade towers in New York City, and suddenly the attention of the world was riveted on this religion, Islam, that very few of us knew very much about. But if you had to guess the religion of a suicide bomber, what religion would you guess? Now, could this religion, this huge religion, be totally absent from the prophecies of the Bible? We're going to find out today. It's not true. Islam is in your Bible.
To order our DVDs, Islam in Bible Prophecy and Will Islam Rule the World, call 1-800-END-TIME or go to endtime.com.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, 4 hours and 15 minutes before the big debate. This will be the first of 3 debates. Most people say that the first one usually is the most influential, and so there's huge stakes here. Both candidates have been preparing very carefully for it. We're being told that Hillary has gone over and over and over, and through mock debates, she has someone that's attempting to act like Donald Trump, and I think they even have two people, one that acts like Donald Trump number one and Donald Trump number two. Will we see the Donald Trump that we saw in the Republican debates, or will we see the more measured and presidential Donald Trump that we have sort of been seeing more of recently? I think they've actually had two different ones just in case the one they're not expecting to show up shows up. It's a little bit interesting and funny, but anyway, that's going to happen in 4 hours and 15 minutes from right now. Now, what if the person that I think should win doesn't? It doesn't matter, because the prophecies tell us what's going to happen. For example, the next president will undoubtedly preside over the war that kills 1/3 of mankind. It's going to be a rough presidency. Revelation chapter 9, verse 13 through 21 prophesies a war that will emanate from the Euphrates River. And oh, by the way, we're fighting up and down the Euphrates River right now. Our planes are over there today bombing. Russia's over there bombing. There's 50 other nations over there that are participating in the coalition against ISIS. All four nations that house the Euphrates are at war. Turkey's at war. Syria, Iraq, Iran. That's what's going on right now. Matter of fact, we may be in the middle of this war before the new president gets to be elected. So we live in very precarious times. The person who gets this presidency could well preside over the worst war the world has ever seen. Will most likely preside over that war. So it may not be as much of a prize as we like to think about, because that president, especially if we have to use American nuclear weapons, and the Bible says that 1/3 of the human race will be wiped out, if we're the number one perpetrator of the killing of 2.4 billion people, well, that president that does that may go down as the worst president in all of American history. So I don't know who's going to win this presidential election. All I can say is this: I know where we're headed. I know this war is coming. Then I know the final 7 years will begin. I do know, however, the United States of America is not going to end up in the coalition of the Antichrist. That's wonderful news. And I also know for certain that the United States of America is going to continue to be Israel's best friend. And that's a wonderful thing to note. So there are good things ahead. There may be some very difficult things ahead as well. So whether Hillary Clinton or whether Trump wins, the prophecies are still going to come to pass no matter what. Now, does that mean that we should just stay home and twiddle our thumbs? No. Don't do that. We should do all we can do, and then God will do the rest. Now, if you understand who is for one world government and pushing America in that one world government, you need to make sure that you vote against that person, because we do not need to be in the one world government of the Antichrist. So if you're a Christian, you need to know exactly where you stand on those issues. It's so vital. It is so absolutely important. And it doesn't matter whether they're white, black, red. That's not even the issue here. The issue is, do I believe in American sovereignty? Do I believe in retaining our independence? Or do I believe it's time to sign a declaration of interdependence, whereby we surrender our decision-making to the United Nations and we actually become one of the states of the United Nations of the world? That's the biggest issue that is at stake right now. Well, I want to get right back to the phones, and Jim, take us to the next caller.
All right, let's go back to Texas. And Robert, you're next up on End of the Age.
Well, hello. My comment is, I listened to Sid Roth one night, and there was a guy that was talking about the seals and the trumpets blasting, and he said something about the last trump blowing, and that's when I came to realize that our next president candidate, his last name is Trump, and I wanted to know what you thought about that, and I'm going to hang up and hear your comment. Is that okay?
Sure. Thank you very much, Robert. I have been asked a lot of times, is this presidential election, and is Donald Trump in particular, in the prophecies of the Bible? I have jokingly said, of course, haven't you heard of the last Trump? But that's only jokingly. That the scripture does not mean that at all. There are 7 trumpets in the Bible, and at the last trump, Jesus Christ will return to this earth. I do not believe that the name Donald Trump is a signal of that, even though I do believe that if he is elected and if he pulls us out of the world governmental system and brings us back to American sovereignty, then he will have played a role in fulfilling what the Bible says is supposed to happen. So in that way, he would have a role in Bible prophecy. Any president that's elected now, we're so close to the wrapping up of everything. No matter who gets elected, they are going to play a role in prophecy, whether they're the one that ignites this war that kills 1/3 of mankind, or whether they pull us out of the one world governmental system, like the Bible says will indeed happen. Whoever is going to be president is going to participate in the fulfillment of the prophecies of the end time. But I certainly would not base my belief on the fact that there are 7 trumpets and that Donald Trump's name is Trump. I don't believe we should interpret prophecy in that way. Sure appreciate the phone call, though, Robert, and I think a lot of people are asking these types of questions because everybody looks for clues. Let me tell you, if you want to understand the prophecies of the Bible, more than just saying, oh, this person's name, I've had a lot of people write to me and say, well, I know Henry Kissinger's the Antichrist because you can take his name and do this and do this. Back in the days of Ronald Reagan, believe it or not, I had people writing me saying, well, Ronald Reagan's the Antichrist because his name is Ronald Wilson Reagan, and Ronald has 6 letters, and Wilson has 6 letters, and Reagan has 6 letters, and therefore it's 666, he's the Antichrist. Well, we got to be careful lest every time we see something that sort of matches, that we suddenly jump to a conclusion that does not really fit. We have put together a course called Understanding the End Time. And if you go through this course, you will not be subject to just wild guesses. The prophecies of the Bible are so provable and so solid that you can know what's going on around you. We put together 14 lessons. The first lesson proves the United States, Great Britain, Russia, and other countries are in the prophecy of the Bible. I mean, proves it. I don't think anybody can take that lesson and not believe in the accuracy of the prophecies of the Bible. And then the second lesson proves which of those nations will end up being a part of the reign of the Antichrist. So we have 14 lessons that will put you on the rock and you will understand the end time. That's the reason we called it Understanding the End Time, is because you need to understand it. I need to understand it because it's now here. We are in the end time right now. So it's so absolutely vital. If you've never been through all 14 lessons of Understanding the End Time, do it. Whatever you've got to do. Call us, 1-800-END-TIME. Our operators will tell you there's a total of 14 DVDs. And get those and get through them, every one, because it's like you're in a dark room and suddenly somebody starts turning the lights on for you. You'll see things like you've never seen them before. So I certainly urge you to do that. We still have open lines, and I still have a little bit of time left, but you need to hurry. The number to call, 877-END-TIME, 877-363-8463. Now, the last thing that is going to be talked about in tonight's debate is security. So where do the two candidates stand? Which one will be the best with all of the chaos and all of the terrorist attacks that we're experiencing? And they're coming fast and furious at us now. Who's the best person to put a stop to all this? Who will take the bull by the horns and just say, no more? We're not having this. And to do it without sacrificing American liberty. Now, that's the big challenge. Who can do this and still respect our right to bear arms, our freedom of religion, our freedom of speech? Because there are people that say, oh, I can solve that for you, but I'm going to outlaw people saying certain things, and I'm going to outlaw people having guns, and I'm going to outlaw this and that and other, and suspend the Bill of Rights. Well, we don't need that to happen. You don't have to sacrifice liberty for security. Benjamin Franklin said, the person that sacrifices liberty for security will end up having neither and will deserve neither. Okay, we do have one more caller on the line. Jim, let's get back to him.
All right, let's go to Texas now. And Mila, you're next up.
Yes, thank you, Pastor.
Mila, I said him, and I meant her, so please forgive me. Welcome.
Pastor, I've read the Bible 4 or 5 times, and this time I started on Acts. Acts chapter 7, verse 43, something just jumped at me, and it's having to do with a star. And like I said, I read the Bible several times, and I've never read anything about the Star of David there, but this time verse 43, and it says, and the star of your God Remphan. Is that the Star of David?
No, that's referring to a heathen god. The god Remphan was a heathen. It says in verse 43, you took up the tabernacle of Moloch, who was also a heathen god, and you worship the star of your god Remphan, and you also you involved yourself in many of these idolatries. So that has nothing to do, though, with the Star of David.
But how did they get the Star of David?
I do not know all of the history of the Star of David and why the nation of Israel now has that on their flag. I know I've read some conjecture about it, but I have never researched that enough to speak with authority on it. So I'm sorry I can't help you.
Okay, one more thing. I also read that God didn't mind having a wall protecting Israel, so having a wall isn't bad, correct?
Right, it's certainly not bad. As a matter of fact, you know, the Pope Francis, has condemned the possibility of building a wall, and yet I've been to the Vatican. They got a huge wall, totally surrounding the Vatican, and President Obama's spoken against the wall, and yet you go to the White House and you got a fence you got to get over before you could ever get in there. So I think they're being a little disingenuous when they refer to that. I think they're just making political hay out of an issue that they themselves don't believe.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the call very much. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen. We live in such a important and critical time. We've come to the end of today's program, but if you need to contact us, oh, by the way, I think we got about 2 more seats to go to Israel. If you want to grab the last 2, call us, 800 Endtime. The number to call is 800 Endtime. Ask to speak to someone about the tour. We'd love for you to go with us. We leave on October the 27th, so call us right away. So thankful for all of you today. God bless you all, and we'll be right back here tomorrow.
End of the Age is a production of Endtime Ministries. This broadcast will be available on our website, endtime.com, in the archives section. On our website, you'll also find more information about how current events are fulfilling Bible prophecy. To reach our operators, call 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463. Endtime Ministries is partner supported. We would like to say thank you to our partners who made this broadcast possible. To do what Matthew 24:14 said, to reach the world with the gospel of the kingdom.